Ring, ring. Hello. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Boys in Motion podcast. I'm Tyler, joined by your boys Brian and Runnerman Andy. And today we're talking about something that's low key, one of the most powerful tools of your training, your crew. Run clubs, cycling groups, Tuesday tune up rides, or Sunday long runs with everybody. If you've ever trained with a crew, you know it makes a difference.
This topic hits hard for endurance athletes. We're all about consistency, and group training can help bring that structure, accountability, and shared motivation that sometimes those long solo training miles lacks. It also is just straight up just way more fun, which means that you're more likely to stick with it with the long term. And as we've mentioned before, it's all about consistency.
Oh yeah, I love a good group. I still remember getting absolutely thrown out of the back and cooked on my first ever group ride. I was about 10 minutes in and just clinging for my dear life on somebody's back wheel, but I kept going back. And over time, now we're like leading Tune Up Tuesday rides, attending different rides around Niagara, and a lot of those people in some of those groups become your training partners, become the motivation to ride, become people you race with or train for races with. And, it builds a good community of friends as well. And so now I would say that that's some of the best parts of my training is the relationships and the people that keep me coming back for more.
So let's hop right into it and chat a little bit about why group training works and why it's so important. So some of the main things is that group training gives just a high level of motivation. If you've sent out that accountability text of let's go out at 8 a.m., sleeping in the next morning just becomes a little harder because you know that your crew is there waiting for you at your meetup spot. And that if you don't go, you don't show up for that activity, you're not only not doing the workout, which you need and want to do, you're also letting down a friend. So just that extra push, that extra motivation to get you out the door is huge.
Yeah, I was the king at leaving someone hanging for, I would literally say, probably a couple years. And big shout out to Charlie and John in Ottawa. They've trained that out of me, and I show up now to every single workout, no matter how early it is. And recently, in this past block, I've been the one to actually push it earlier to get more people out and more people having fun.
Now, are you usually actually on time, or are you always doing the friggin' scramble 5 minutes after the start time?
Oh no, not anymore. You're right. So I went from I was the iconic ditcher to, okay, I'll see you guys later, have a good one, to, hey, I'm almost there, give me 15 more minutes. And now I'm there 15 minutes early, waiting for those slackers 15 minutes after the start time. So I have done a full circle. I've been at each end of the spectrum here. I guess also depends on the time of the year and how serious I am in my block. But yeah, I am now these days I would say, first one to the parking lot, ready to rumble.
Oh, that's amazing. I remember meeting up with you in the dead of winter in Ottawa for some really, really terrible long runs and doing some group training. And I would say one of the biggest benefits of those group training sessions is the lower perceived effort. When you seem to go out, when I go out with other people, the same kind of intensity feels way easier. I think it's one, it holds you accountable to pace when there's somebody that you can just pace off of. It's less mentally taxing to try to hold that same amount of effort. And when you know there's other people suffering with you, it just makes life a little bit easier. I know, like, going to those OCRC runs, those were always some of my fastest paces. And, pushing the pace on the bikes, Tune Up Tuesdays or Northtown Cycling Club here in Niagara, when I'm pushing out those watts and there's people with me, it just it's nice to bring everybody along, and yeah, it just feels a little bit easier because there's people around you.
Another nice thing is that it is that built-in structure. And what I mean by that is certain crews will be doing certain days of the week where they're doing certain workouts. So if you are someone that isn't really on a specific training plan and is just doing exercise to get fit, keep fitness, sometimes jumping in on other people's workouts, whether that's a friend or a certain group, is nice because you can kind of learn different routines, different workouts, and you don't necessarily need to come up with it all on your own. So that's a nice built-in structure that you don't necessarily need to work for.
Yeah, 100%. That's just easy gains and just way less stressful than trying to figure out and navigate through some of these harder workouts, even alone. Even if you're scheduling them ahead of time, you sometimes, you're dreading it, you're doing it alone, you might not hit the paces as well. So I think just being in a group, 10 times better.
Yeah, so we're talking about groups, but we're also talking about like those running clubs and cycling clubs. And I think one of the big benefits there is the social accountability of seeing those same people at those groups and knowing and talking with some of them, saying that I'm going, and also having that social outlet to meet new people. It's very infrequent that people kind of like past the age of university are actually meeting a ton of new people. A lot of people, like, yeah, sure, you might meet somebody new through work, but even that can get fairly stale if you're in the same role for a long time. So actually going out to running clubs where you're meeting different people can give you some of that like fresh faces, which is really, really good. And part of the greatest thing is most running clubs and cycling groups are either ending and starting at at a coffee shop, or even better, a brewery.
Yeah, just a shout out to, that's actually one recently started in Toronto called the DuPont Run Club that I've went to a couple times now, one with a couple other BIM TO members, and that's their whole concept. It's short, more social running, but it's always at a local coffee shop. Actually, sometimes they go to like ice cream shops or stuff like that, and generally you kind of go stop. There's often a discount, which is great at the business, and then you kind of just chat with those people. So that's been a really fun time.
Yeah, and I know, Brian, every time you come to Ottawa, we make an effort to try to hit OCRC, one of I would say the biggest run club in Ottawa. We meet up with a lot of the other OCRC members, and to be honest, I usually hang out with them only when we go to OCRC. So just because, life is fast and everybody has their own priorities, but making that time to go for your run, go for your workout, as well as hanging out with friends, it's a two birds with one stone kind of deal.
Yeah, that's true. Like somebody like Ross, who's been on the podcast before, right? Like you guys live fairly far away, and it's understandable. Like each of you have your own training partners and that sort of thing. But to go to a larger group and do something even like more social in that big group it's electric and it's super fun. And you wouldn't get that if you didn't have these run clubs that were like fairly established, that had those consistent schedules where, I know when I come to Ottawa in September, I'll be there on Tuesday night, and some of those people will be there, and familiar faces and that sort of thing, and it'll get like a bunch of those like social kind of commitments done at one spot, and I'll get my run in. So it's a win-win-win-win. So I absolutely love it.
Another big win from these kind of doing group exercise is that you can learn a lot from others and the way people do things, whether that's having someone to help pace. You're doing a hard set, maybe for them they're a little quicker than you and they can kind of help you through that pace without it being a big effort for them, whether that's gear. Maybe they have a great pair of shorts that they can just store all of the gels and all of their equipment, or a jacket, and it was a really rainy run and they came back and were happy as a clam, nice and dry, and you were soaked and you want to learn that lesson. And one of my favorites is nutrition. It's a great time if you're doing a long run. I know you guys do group long runs in Ottawa quite a bit. In that long run, everyone has different preferred snacks, and that's a great time to just start swapping snacks, see what you like best, so that you know what for the next long run what you want to be bringing out.
Speaking of which, I brought some Rice Krispies on my last mega long run, and that was a nice switch up to the gels. So would encourage people to give that a try if you're getting a little exhausted on the gels. a nice Rice Krispie, something to chew, is a good thing to add to that snack inventory.
Was it the homemade or was it the packaged?
This was packaged because I was
Nice.
traveling. So
Yeah.
the package was just so easy, but the homemade is great for the bike. Now, I think another great thing about running clubs specifically, cycling clubs actually maybe a little bit less because I feel like there's more rules in cycling and also like unspoken rules that each ride will have. So, but it's about bringing beginners to the sport, into the sport in a healthy way, in a social way, and one that like is a really positive experience because run clubs are set up to be really enjoyable and they're often not just like treacherously long. There are definitely those communities that do that, but like having those options of like a 3, 4, 7K, different routes. There's everybody has a different speed. There's generally also people who are walking at some run clubs if it's big enough. And it's just a really, really great place to bring beginners to show them like people of all shapes, backgrounds, sizes are into running. They love it because of the social thing. And I've never gone to a run club and seen a lot of people having a bad time. And so if you bring somebody who's new into the sport to a run club, I think it will interest them more in the sport, especially if you're somebody who trains like a madman, because maybe that's all they know about running and they don't see that like it's as simple as like in 20 minutes and a coffee and just you're having more banter than you are running.
Yeah, that's true. That's a big point to it. Is I think kind of you take that. Some people take that mindset, like first going into a gym, being scared, being embarrassed of being that newbie in the gym. Same thing I think goes with run clubs. I know I spoke to a lot of beginners. Is I don't want to go because I don't know if I'm too slow to go to the run club or I'm too this or too that. But I think that's the beauty of it. Is there's such a wide range of, you call it paces, people, their goals, and whatever they want to get from that run, is that it doesn't really matter. It's just about having fun with the people you're there with and the amount of joy that you get from running with others.
It definitely depends on the run club you go to though, and we'll definitely get into like some of the
For
different
sure.
kind of run clubs that exist and the different kind of cycling groups that exist, because there's levels and layers to this as well.
Very true.
Yeah, I think the other thing, just kind of on the gain piece before we jump into a few specific run clubs, I think one of the biggest thing of running in a group is that it helps when you're on that struggle bus. When you're doing the solo workouts or big sessions or long runs specifically, it's very easy to just hop right on that struggle bus and be on it all day long. But being with that group when you're doing it, one, makes it feel way easier, and people being there just makes the miles just melt away. I always say that running in the city, I find running goes by so quick, and running kind of in the country is super slow. The only thing quicker than the city is anywhere with friends, because when you're with friends and you're just chit-chatting, well, depending on what kind of run you're doing, if you're chit-chatting, I find runs, like long runs, it feels like they're 30 minutes long. I know
Yeah.
Tyler and Brian, we've done a few of those Niagara loops, and you blink and it's done.
Yeah, it's wild. I think with friends, it just fast forwards everything. When exactly I go do those Niagara loops with the guys, and it's just so easy to get those miles in, and you're hanging out with people, catching up with people that you haven't seen for a while in most cases. A couple weeks ago, I went on a run with McDuff. He did the first half with me, literally flew by, and then I did another 10, felt like 5K. Like it's just like a time warp, and especially helps you off that struggle bus. Like just enforcing that being with people, community, just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, totally. So before we give some local shout outs in each of our respective places as some ideas for who and what people can join, I do just want to differentiate that kind of there is a difference between the weekly run club and what I would call a training group. And I mean, training group can be triathlon, cycling, running, and a run club or a cycling club can, have all sorts of different intensities. But when I say run club, I usually mean something that's like open to all, generally something that is open to all paces. So there's this high level of inclusivity, and it's also usually a way bigger community where they have one maybe 2, sometimes 3 scheduled weekly events. Doesn't mean they always happen at the exact same place, but usually it's like the same time, and it's run by a larger group of like organizers. And then you have your training group, which is really like a collection of athletes who are self-managing something where they're like, the goal is fitness, and it's usually a group of people who all have those shared kind of ambitions and goals, and they're usually trying to like actually seek gains. Whereas the run club, I would say, is more based around community, social, and yes, a little bit of fitness, but the training group is really what I'm calling it. It's the training is the main priority, and then the social and that sort of thing is an extension of the tough efforts that people are going in and putting together.
Yeah, perfectly explained. And that reminds me, I do have to text the training group asking what the workout is this week, because I have to get mentally prepared for those. Because of course, like you just mentioned, they're not just leisurely runs or rides. They have a purpose, and you're out there to do something hard with friends, which makes it easier in turn, right? So like perfect example for me in Ottawa would be like the run club is OCRC, that a lot of people go to, very popular, very all pace, anybody could join, and you kind of meet for that social aspect. You go, it's a 4 to 6K loop every week, so it's always done within half an hour, and then you go enjoy some food or some drinks at the local brewery that it's held at. But then on the other spectrum, let's call it, is our nice freaky Wicked Wednesdays with Dr. Oz and a few of the freaks in Ottawa, let's call them. And for example, I'm one of the slowest ones of that group, and those are usually smaller training groups. We're usually between 4 to 6 people, and we go there, warm up, do an interval, cool down, go home, right? There's some obviously chatter and some fun during the whole time, but we're there to do an effort together as a group. But again, we do it all at our own paces. You're kind of in the same vicinity, but you're kind of just doing your own workout at the same time.
Yeah, and I think there's room for both of those things in people's calendars, in people's lives. I think it's really important to get that run club or cycling club in every once in a while, just to kind of ground yourself in like, sport doesn't need to be too serious, and it's about the people and the community around you. And it's also a great place to maybe meet new people who are at those faster paces that maybe you'd form a training group from. I know I've certainly done that, but I think the training group, if you're listening to this podcast, you take endurance sports seriously. So let's be honest, most people who listen to this would probably be fairly fit for a training group. I find often they can form one out of like friendships from a run club where there's like this selection of people at a similar pace, or shared goals and ambitions, like I said. So like a race is one way that like a lot of people will come together and actually form a training group, because you all have a similar deadline and a similar thing that you're training for, and that really makes for a strong training group, I find. And I'm already seeing all of these trail runs that Mustafa's doing is getting a little spooky, because I think he's already got that training group for UTM, right?
It's very spooky. I see those poles and that man barreling down the hills, and I am spooked, and I'm just waiting for those dominoes to fall. But the one big shout out that I want to give here, there's a bunch of great run clubs in Toronto, but one thing that I want to highlight and that I always take advantage of is when you are traveling for a race, to look up local run clubs where that race is and try to participate in a shakeout with that run club. One of the big advantages of, you can kind of chat with a bunch of people all doing that same race if you're going to that race alone, not with your big crew, but also great with your big crew, but also a great place to kind of ask about local tips about that race, kind of little course insiders from the locals, and often you get some nice freebies, so that's always a bonus.
Speaking of freebies, I think another great time to actually look up a run club, and you won't get a training group from this because you're not actually in the community, but a run club or cycling club while you're vacationing, because you'll be going around kind of usually a pretty scenic, good route surrounded by the culture, the people, the energy. And so I want to give a shout out to the run club that I joined in Oceanside. I think it was, maybe it's Oceanside Run Club. I'm going to have to come back to it, but I remember filming a short with them. The organizer of that run club was super, super kind, and every new member gets a little business card for a free 8-ounce pour of beer after they complete the run. So that was awesome. I'm going to pull that name. Tyler, is there anything like outside of like the daily clubs that you have any tips on?
Well, I was going to say probably even more popular in Toronto, to be honest, but in Ottawa, it's you always see some run clubs, pop in and out, but there's always some brand demo days sometimes as well. So those are also very good days to go to, though, to try out those run clubs. Is you get, that bonus demo day with, either a shoe brand or a coat brand or something like that, and there's always extra little goodies and or try-ons that you could do for the run itself. So I think that's just a little bonus of getting those little, keeping an eye out for those demo days.
That's true. Yeah, I know that Ottawa City Run Club sometimes does that. And the run club in Oceanside was South O Run Club, and they run out of the South O Brewery, and very, very tasty beer on the coast. But yes, I think tracking some of these run clubs for those special events is key as well. Those gear try-ons, and sometimes they'll also have like sponsored events and that sort of thing that are a little bit bigger, similar to like our BIM 5K, for example. I would call ourselves maybe more of a training group, but not even. But like launching events is something that all of these groups generally do, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and then just kind of tee off into kind of talking about our community, but kind of going a little further back to other communities. There's just so many kind of on that point of traveling. There's so many good like endurance YouTubers, kind of influencers, kind of those things that do great community events as well. So that's another thing to be on the lookout of, kind of shakeouts and runs like that. I know Eric Floberg runs, I've chatted about him before. He always does shakeouts at the Chicago Marathon. So especially those bigger city marathons, it's kind of fun to go maybe meet those people that you look up to, give you lots of motivation as you're slogging all of those miles for that specific race. So it's kind of a good opportunity to kind of go into that community and chat with a bunch of people about that as well.
Yeah, I love it. So why don't we go around, each of us highlight 2 or 3 local clubs, training groups, whatever it might be, talk about what makes each one a little bit unique and some of the features that each one has. And if you do know kind of their schedule, that's helpful as well. If you'd like, I can kick it off with, I think, probably the biggest in Niagara from the run club's perspective, which is Corners Run Crew. And Corners is a very pace inclusive and like very community focused. It's a large that runs all over Niagara. I think their most popular run is, I think, an 8:30 start time on Saturday mornings. And they will usually pick a coffee shop in the 12 cities of Niagara, really. And they'll kind of, generally they have that locked in the week before. But those are something that like a lot of BIM community members have gone out to. Like myself, Mark, the Bruntons have gone out to those all together. And it's really, really nice. But again, it's that pace inclusivity. It's not a training group at all, but they do sprinkle in some other runs. I think they do a weekday morning and then maybe another afternoon in the week. But I only know them from the Saturday runs.
I'll give 2 good options here in Toronto that are kind of a little different from one another and kind of serve different purposes. And that's, the first is the DuPont Run Club. That's a new one that has opened up pretty close to where I live. And they run Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. And they always start at DuPont Fitness, which is the partner gym that the organizers run. Do a small 5K loop, always ending for some social and usually coffee, which is great at a small local business. So that's an awesome one. They also do a Wednesday evening run. But then another great one in Toronto is the Black Toe. It's a running store, kind of a boutique running store, a pretty big running store in Toronto. And they have 2 locations, one more downtown on King West and one on Yonge in Midtown. kind of Yonge and Eglinton. And that one is unique in that they have a Sunday long run. So they're kind of going longer distances, and they have a pretty good set of different groups, from kind of more beginner friendly to groups that are tackling more structured workouts. So I haven't actually been to the long run. I've been to some of their weekday runs, but that is definitely one for my next training block that I'm really hoping to get out and maybe form more of a training group out of that run club. So that's one that I'm excited for.
Oh, that's cool. That's so exciting. Yeah, please let us know how it is, because I would be interested, being in Toronto like now and then and not being too far. If it's a real good group and they'll help me push the pace, it's not out of the question to take a little drive up and join you for some miles.
Just bike up and do a brick. Be nice.
True. Everything can be a brick, baby.
That's the motive right there. Everything could be a brick. Yeah, no, I did hear about Black Toe and their freaky group. I've heard. And for me, up in, I guess, Eastern Ontario with Ottawa, of course, the biggest run crew there would be Ottawa City Run Club, OCRC. I think it's the biggest. It's kind of like that Parkdale in Toronto. 100 people show up on a Tuesday, run 4 to 6K, go to a brewery. It's very pace inclusive. Everything from, the walkers up to the 4 minute per kilometer speedsters go to that one. I think those are good, for group runs. You kind of have your niche little group that when Brian, you come, we kind of stick to our own little group within that big group. But then it's good to stay with the whole crew afterwards and have some drinks or some food there at, what is it called? Beyond the Pale Brewery. So that's always a good time. You always could guarantee there's a lot of people there. And then I would bring it to the other spectrum, let's call it, to a smaller kind of training group, I could call it, is we do some Bush Taka long runs out of basically a bike store on weekends on the Sunday. Those are more of a little bit still, I would say a little bit still pace inclusive, but I would say geared towards the speedier group.
The inclusivity is questionable there. Like it's
inclusive if you're fast.
Yeah, inclusive if you love running a half marathon in 2 hours as your kind
exactly.
of,
so in my head, it's in my head, and everyone that joins, it's inclusive. But yeah, you're right. I guess if you're a beginner and then you're also having an off day, I've known to seen people drop off of that group, but you always find them again. So I would say more of a training group mixed in with kind of that long run community vibe. I go to those honestly when I'm in a fitter state and when I'm actually training towards a goal. So those are kind of those are kind of the two spectrums that I go to.
You start off the point with it's very inclusive, and then you say, well, I can only go when I'm actually fit.
Yeah, so never mind, maybe.
Yeah. So of course there's these massive run clubs like your OCRC, like your corners. I think they're great for bringing people out for the first time. They're huge. You can go any pace, but it's not really what tickles my fancy anymore. I like the more bespoke training group or even the smaller run club. So in Niagara, there's one that launched recently. Got to give a shout out to Chloe because she partners with them a lot. So Coffee Cruisers, but really it's the North End Run Club that runs Saturday mornings out of Bright Pours Cafe in St. Catharines. They also do a Monday at 6 p.m., but I think their Saturday is very well attended. And they just started this year, and I think they've gotten some decent traction in that. So they're great. So that's North End Run Club. But there's also North Town Cycling Club. I haven't actually met the person who kind of manages or owns that club, but I went on one of their rides and it was freaky fast, like pushing good paces, like over 32k an hour, and everybody was, well fit to be in that group. And then the last shout out that I want to do is, and for those on YouTube, I'm showing the logo, which is the Coffee Trotters. So many friends of the pod in that crew. I don't actually know who the founder is. It might be bad boy Chris Carter. I have to say it
has to be Mr. Carter or friggin' Jimmy.
Yeah, true. Jimmy is a menace on the long runs as well, and Romeo as well. So there's some very fast people. I would call that not a run club, but more a training group based on the stuff that they do. They are doing like minimum half marathon long runs, and then they do track like interval sessions during the week as well, and they sprinkle in a ton of runs. So I think like if you're in Niagara, the ones that I mentioned kind of go from like inclusive for first timers all the way to like if you can really push the paces, but there's something for everybody. Is really, I think, the point of us sharing all of these different ideas on like what we like and what we prefer. None of them do I go to all of the time, and I don't think either of you either, but certainly it's a nice thing to add to your calendar. And if you can fit it in your training, even better.
100%. And again, just quick shout out, quick story about the coffee trotters. I was in Niagara a couple weekends ago and was running down the Allenberg path and did a nice flyby with the whole crew there on their Sunday long. So it was nice. They looks like they seen a ghost because they saw me, the Ottawa boy, randomly running towards Welland with Nathan McDuff. So it was kind of hilarious. They're like looking at me like, is that you? And then of course I was wearing something Ironman. So they were able to point me out at the crowd.
Hilarious. Never not wearing the merch.
Love it. And I think to put a bow on this episode of kind of the main talking points, I think let's maybe talk about this community a little bit, the Boys in Motion community, and kind of the events that we put on. So unfortunately, we have the challenge of being located in 3 different main cities. So we have to utilize kind of these things we've chatted about in this episode throughout the year, because we're not always together able to form a in-person training group. But over the course of starting Boys in Motion, we have done some fun, exciting kind of community events. I'm sure a lot of you, we've done 2 Boys in Motion 5Ks at this point, one much larger than the other. So that is where we're able to test their speed and really get kind of a nice race experience, regardless of where they were at in their, put on those Vaporflies that, for those that are watching, that Tyler just showed, and really get that race experience no matter where you are in your running journey. The annual BIM ride, which we've done 3 years now. This year, the first one that was kind of more organized, where we expanded that peloton and expanded into a pain train and a chat pack. That was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of. And the Boys in Motion Tune-Up Tuesday rides, which unfortunately this winter, because of my bike setup, I wasn't able to take part in too much. But it is fun to get on a Zoom call in the winter and all get super sweaty while we're trying to chase each other. Well, I'm trying to chase everyone, really.
I'm actually excited to get those back going. I know it's Juicy's favorite day of the week when she's just listening to me huffing and puffing on the living room floor there on the bike, but I think it's very fun and I can't wait to get those going again.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys, and we didn't really mention this, is most of these, almost everything except for some special events, and pretty well everything that we organize, is either very low cost or completely free. And I think that's the nice thing as well, is we started building our events based on the idea is that they should be accessible to everybody who wants to train and push themselves. And so trying to make them as affordable as possible, or even subsidizing them out of pocket to make sure that as many people would come and the barriers were as low as possible, is something that I think motivated us to really put these together. Something like the Tune-Up Tuesdays is a little different in that, you know, it's something that holds us accountable and keeps the social cohesion throughout those winter months when we're not able to hop on the bikes together. But for sure, like the BIM ride, organizing that, like we didn't really make any money on that. Every penny that came in went out to provide that experience to people. And I mean, the previous BIM 5K, we were certainly like lost money, but we gained so much in terms of community and I think just like reward from a different perspective than just money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially that BIM 5K where there was so many kind of new faces, new people that were coming out. That's kind of the first time we partnered with Coffee Cruisers, and Chloe was able to bring out a ton of people from kind of that Fort Erie, Crystal Beach area. So it was really cool to just see everyone be able to give out prizes to people that may not have gotten like first and second in a time perspective. And just that excitement around kind of winning something based off some fun little silly category that we've cooked up. I think that's something that I find is pretty exciting, and it's always fun to see people's face light up when they get a prize. And we had some pretty nice prizes, some pretty expensive carbs, so not bad for a free event.
Yeah, it was super fun to see the amount of people coming, and even just the family support as well. Even people not racing, right? And we've even had a little group of spectators going. So it was just an overall crazy, amazing day, and can't wait to do the next one.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's lots to come in from that perspective. Now, one thing that I saw was there are like these groups that are forming basically that are these like small, more exclusive, we'll call them run clubs, where it's just a few people. What do you think of those versus like the big organized run club? I shared some of my thoughts earlier, but I'm really interested to see like what's your guys' perspective on that?
My perspective is like big run clubs, you're not really running that much, like because it's my perspective, especially being in Toronto, is these like I've been to Parkdale Road Runners, great community, but when you're 100 people going down Toronto streets, you're clogging up the whole street. You're barely able to run. So I think they are really, if you're looking to kind of progress fitness in a kind of a serious way, those run clubs are not the best. And those are really either for getting motivation, catching that bug, purely social time with a side of movement is my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of us here in Ottawa actually do a long, let's call it a long warm up rolling into that run club run, knowing that, it's more of a conversation, even a conversational pace, even more than your warm up. But yeah, just being there, that the goal of those bigger group runs are for the social aspect, which again, there's a time for that, but most of the time, you're trying to train, you're trying to get those fitness gains in our cases. So we either go there with a long warm up, you do the OCRC run, you cool down, you go home. It's not for that social aspect anymore. And I think that call it the smaller training groups with the 3 or 4 people up to 6 people maybe are more of that. I think for me provide more value to actually be social, but also being productive and smashing your workout.
Yeah, and that's where you hit it on the head is I think when I was in my infancy of running and doing like these endurance endeavors, I loved the big, huge social run club that was super inclusive that I knew was going to be there. But I've progressed now, I think, to the point where I love to run with people and cycle with people who are also going to push me to be better. And it's tough to get that at the larger type of setups. And I like that kind of like smaller where it's a little bit more about the business end of things than it is about the social end of things. It doesn't mean that like every time you go out it needs to be balls to the walls and full gas, but I do like when the shared ambitions and goals are felt throughout everybody who's attending that, and you're spending much more time exercising than you are on the social thing.
I was listening to Matt Fox's podcast recently, and he was basically saying like how he likes going out with training groups where all the people are faster than him, so that he really has someone or people to push him, kind of pushing those limits always. But one of the things that he likes doing is basically like if you're doing a big workout where you're doing a few sets of either telling the group of like, let's race on this last rep and like let's get a little bit competitive within this workout, or even better, just not tell the group that you're going to race and then just start pushing the pace, them knowing that you're the least person in the group. So then they're like, whoa, this person's pushing, I have to push harder. And just once in a while, just shaking things up a little bit within the group. I know, Brian, you'll like that.
You perfectly explained the Tune Up Tuesday ride. One of the best experiences in recent times, we had some new tune-up riders join us, and Joe specifically, he's a rower. He's a pretty light guy. He's got to be about $155, $160. anyways, this guy can push as many watts as I can. And he joined the group for the first time and just started smashing on the front, and it woke everybody up. And to this day, it was one of the best experiences we've had in an in-person Tune-Up Tuesday, that first day with him, because yeah, it certainly like woke some people up of saying like the last few tune-up rides have just been a little bit of a casual spin, and now we're out here racing. And I think people really enjoyed that. So, but again, you need the right crowd, the right mix, the right motivation for everybody to enjoy that.
Yeah, the problem is if you do that too much like me, now people expect it. So now your cover's blown.
Everybody knows of the infamous freaking shoulder sitter tie on the intervals.
I hit John with that too last week. I was on his back foot for what was it? 8 out of the 11K at lactate. In the last 2K, I said, "AB, see you later, John." And I just rocket ship it up the road a little bit just to give him that doubt that I'm still around, you know?
And see, I think that's what it's all about. You guys are my people. The people listening are our people. I think I think this answers the question of like the training group that shares your goals is better than the big club that is super inclusive in many respects, in many regards, when you want to really develop.
100%. Double that down.
Okay, so we're coming up to time here. I just want to ask one question. This episode is coming out on the 16th. So it will be sort of 1 week out from both of your races. So could you tease kind of 1 minute each? Andrew, you have Berlin in less than a week. Tyler, you have Army Run versus McDuff in less than a week. Andrew, we'll start with you. What is something you're looking forward to on race day?
Doing a world marathon major, it's got to be the crowds and all the people that have come very far away to come cheer me on. That is priority number one, is just to take all of that in and let it just drive me to hopefully hit a goal time. But it's really to enjoy that experience. The crowds at marathon majors are next level. We have a great race here in Toronto and the crowds are great, but these races push it to the next level. And I really think kind of being in that moment, taking it in and enjoying the crowds and all the energy that it brings is the main thing I'm looking forward to.
Super. That's exciting. Tyler, what about you?
Can't wait to hear it, Andrew. It's going to be awesome. I think, like you're saying, that I can't imagine the world majors, the crowds, because I think that's the thing I look forward to the most when, doing those big Ironman races, and don't know if they compare, but I could imagine it's something real close. For me, the Army Run, I'm just looking to stay to I guess practice that race morning, that race day feel. It's kind of really we've had a couple episodes on it already, a tune-up race for me. So I'm looking to go in there controlled, get through the first half very controlled, and actually try to speed up through the end there. I don't think I've done a 10K at that race before, but never the 21. Don't think because I'm going to be going out at that marathon pace, I will not be going for a PR, but it is a pretty hilly race. So just trying to stay consistent and stay strong through those 21K.
Awesome. Well, I am looking forward to debriefing both of those races next week, and I'm sure the listeners are also excited about how you both do. So that's a wrap on today's episode of the Boys in Motion podcast. Thanks for joining us. Whether you are flying solo or already rolling deep, we hope that you got to thinking about the power of training with others.
100%. And if you're local, come on and hang out with us. We've got our Tuesday nights BIM rides for now in person. When it gets a little chilly, we'll be moving on to the My Whoosh squad on the trainers in the living room. We've got our annual BIM ride that we're going to be mustering up some details, of course, by the end of the year for everybody. And of course, the local BIM 5K, which we can't wait to host again. You could find all the details on our socials, and we'll obviously be teasing them on the pod coming soon. And if you're part of a club you love, share this episode with that crew.
And that weekly reminder that we're not medical professionals, coaches, or therapists, just a couple of boys talking from the saddle and while we're pounding the pavement. So always do what's best for your body and your training plan.
Awesome. So surround yourself with the right people, and the miles will just take care of themselves. Catch you next time for a run or a ride.